Thank you again for your patience. We are so happy to be here with you today and apologize for the slow start to our session. I want to extend a very warm welcome to the 2025 NDC Partnership Youth Engagement Forum. So as colleagues join, we want to make sure everyone is able to follow the discussions. We have live interpretation today into French and Spanish. For those of you who would like to make use of this, you can do so by clicking the globe world icon in your Zoom toolbar and selecting your preferred language. You can also select mute original language if you are having any issues hearing the interpretation. Some quick notes on housekeeping before we kick off. We kindly ask you to keep your microphone muted for the first portion of our session today. There will be time after 2 shorter sessions where we will go into a breakout room for discussion, and you'll be able to engage with the colleagues that are here today. There's going to be a lot shared, hopefully. If something resonates with you, please feel free to share it online using the hashtag YEF2025. If you have any technical issues during the event, please use the chat function and someone on the team will be there to support you. And then lastly, this event will be recorded and will be shared on virtual platforms after today, with the exception of the breakout room. We'll also be compiling the takeaways, sharing them broadly, working with partners to make sure the insights that you're bringing to this conversation today make their way into other discussions, into other products. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. This is the second of 4 events co-hosted by UNDP and the NDC Partnership on the topic of meaningful youth engagement in NDCs 3.0. We are here today because of incredibly successful regional consultations carried out earlier this year by YOUNGO and IIY-FCC, the International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change, which gathered input from over 700 young people around the globe on the most pressing climate challenges and how to strengthen youth participation in policymaking. We will shortly get into the results of these consultations to learn more. But our goal today is to share a dialogue around strengthening engagement between governments and their youth communities, national youth communities, on the road to COP30, as well as in the longer term with sustainable implementation of the NDCs. So nearly 30 countries have already submitted their NDCs 3.0, and the remainder have ambitions to finalize theirs before the end of this year. According to ongoing analysis by colleagues at UNDP on gender and social inclusion, about half of the submitted NDCs acknowledge the meaningful participation of youth, highlight their roles in decision-making, in climate decision-making, and include measures to boost youth engagement through better access to resources, to training, and to technology transfer, all reflecting a positive trend in youth inclusion and youth-sensitive measures across both mitigation and adaptation. From our analysis at the NDC Partnership of member requests for support, so country governments requesting support, countries are seeking to build institutional capacity to engage young people, to strengthen climate change education, to support youth-led entrepreneurship, and raise awareness of climate-related risks and opportunities. Countries are increasingly recognizing the importance of youth and young people and children as stakeholders in NDC planning and implementation. However, meaningful engagement will require increased and better targeted support. So as this NDC 3.0 cycle unfolds throughout 2025, integrating young people as contributors, not just as constituents, will be essential to building inclusive, resilient, and forward-looking NDCs, which is why we're here today. We have a really engaging program over the next 90 minutes, a few less since we started a little late. We're first going to hear around the collaborative effort to gather input from young people all over the globe. This is the initiative I mentioned earlier, hosted by YOUNGO, IIY-FCC, as well as UNDP's Youth for Climate platform. on the core elements of meaningful youth engagement in the NDC process. Then to drive these learnings home, we are very excited to welcome two wonderful speakers, one representing the youth side of things and one from a national government in the region to dig deeper into these themes coming out of the consultations, as well as share their own lived experiences. Finally, we will all gather in a breakout room to process what we've heard and to talk through what will be required to better support meaningful engagement in the near term. And then as we close, we will hear a parting video address from Leila Hassanova and Marcele Oliveira, Presidency Youth Climate Champions for COP29 and COP30. So as you can see, the chat function is very much open. We really encourage everyone here today to please feel free to share in the chat, share where you're joining from, your engagement. We had fantastic responses in your registration, but welcome you to share that information with colleagues here as well. Please also know that we are eager to get to the breakout rooms to learn more from your experiences and look forward to those conversations there. I am going to just quickly check. Okay, fantastic. It is my pleasure to move on to the results from the consultations carried out by Youngo and IYFC. If we can move to the next slide. And we can go ahead. Thank you. Fantastic. So as briefly described earlier, this was an ongoing effort, which was carried out virtually. It was open to all people across the globe. There were online consultations and surveys and discussions to identify specific regional issues and barriers to youth engagement, and to create key regional youth policy recommendations for meaningful youth engagement in the NDC process. Next slide, please. Fantastic. The objectives of these consultations were to strengthen children and youth engagement in this round of NDCs and to have lessons learned moving forward, to gather children and youth perspectives across a wide variety of topics, looking to inform policy change, as well as bridge the gap between state actors and non-state actors, specifically children and youth. Next slide, please. Fantastic. This is just a quick breakdown of responses received. We mentioned there were over 700 people that shared their insights in these consultations. These were seen from folks in 92 countries, which is a fantastic spread of those. The average age of participants was 28 years old. You can see the regional breakdown here in the slide. Quite a few of the participants come from African countries, as well as those in Asia and the Pacific, many of whom we hope are here today as we are in these time zones. Next slide, please. The next few slides are going to cover a couple topics that were asked about in the consultations. So first, we're looking at barriers to meaningful youth engagement in NDCs. A vast majority of folks noted the lack of information and awareness as one of the top barriers they see to their engagement in the NDCs. I think this is a very interactive Zoom, so you might see folks' pointers moving across the slide, but I think what's important to focus on are the number of participants in these consultations, noting accessibility as well as a lack of capacity building and training, limited recognition of young people as stakeholders in these processes. Getting down to the list, these are still quite important. The lack of follow-up and implementation, limited representation of marginalized youth, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have a chance to get into these in the breakout rooms, so please be thinking about topics that you want to discuss that particularly resonate with you and potential barriers that you might have experienced as well. Next slide, please. Next, we asked about strategies for effective youth engagement. Folks participating in these consultations noted youth-led climate action support, financial and logistical support for youth engagement, youth representation in party delegations, as well as ongoing dialogue and consultations that are continuous and ongoing. Next slide, please. Next, we were asked policy recommendations. So from the lived experiences of the people participating in these consultations, what recommendations they would make. These are very closely tracking those that you suggested in your registration forms for today's session as well. So in increasing capacity building and education programs, push for support for youth innovation as well as entrepreneurship, the integration of young people into formalized national and local climate policies, institutionalizing that representation over time, strengthening international and regional collaboration, monitoring and accountability, always required. These are recommendations that we have heard and that are regularly brought up. And so I'm hoping that there will be quite a bit of conversation about these today. Next slide, please. Also, a reflection of the question we asked you today: what support is needed for meaningfully engaging young people in this NDC 3.0 process that we're currently in the middle of? Capacity building and training, no surprise there. Networking and platforms for collaboration. Opportunities for regional and international engagement, again, access to information and resources, support for youth-led monitoring and accountability. So many of these topics you all also mentioned in your registration for today. I think we have another slide. Let me just check. Fantastic. This is just a breakdown of some regional trends that we're seeing in the responses. Young people from Africa showed a very high level of participation, as you saw in the breakdown of the graphs earlier, and really emphasized the financial and institutional barriers that they experience. For colleagues in Asia and the Pacific region, there was a focus on technical training, translating these NDCs, these policy documents, as well as an emphasis on disaster and planning around climate resilience. In Latin America and the Caribbean, there was a note, a particular note on including indigenous populations, political participation, and centering justice in these policies and in the implementation of these policies. Colleagues in Europe and North America mentioned in higher numbers the need for transparency, for intergenerational equity, and especially for establishing formal roles for young people and really formalizing these processes for representation. So much of that we heard in the first Youth Engagement Forum session earlier this week, and we'll be sharing those takeaways with you as well. In the Arab states, they called for reforms in civic space and the protection of youth voices. And then there was a note about colleagues from Australia. There was an emphasis on education and climate curriculum challenges. I think this is a really important slide to showcase the vast number of topics that young people are prioritizing as they think about their participation in climate processes and climate action in policymaking, but also in informing their futures and ensuring that there's justice and sustainability in livelihoods as well. I'm going to turn to the next slide and then hopefully call on colleagues that I know are in the audience to share a little bit about the recommendations that were identified in this consultation. Haley, if you are available to hop in.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Maybe
Hannah. Hi, everyone.
quick introduction of yourself as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, Hi everyone, I am Haley Campbell, she, her pronouns, and I am the Executive Director of Care About Climate, where we do a lot of engagement with young people on NDCs. You might have heard of the NDC Equity Tracker, or actually see some people here that will know about the NDC Youth Clause, where we've been trying to get more youth inclusion in NDCs, and also was fortunate to be the North America moderator for the consultations with Youngo, so really in an Indigenous youth forum community as well, who were co-moderating that with all of us. And so really thankful to be a part of that with everyone and excited to be here to share some thoughts and recommendations that we have heard from young people, which include not just thinking about, engaging young people one time through a consultation, but also having formalized ways to engage with young people, whether it's through having like a formal governance structure or having a mandated policy for youth engagement. It's really important to recognize that engagement doesn't only happen one time. It should happen and continue throughout and then be reflected in the NDCs. So ensuring that they are not only consulted, but seeing what they talked about and their priorities show up in the NDCs were things that we heard a lot of from people who participated. We also heard a lot of the need for having dedicated funding for climate action led by young people. And that's really important because a lot of times, if you're a young person on here, you've probably done this, you've gone out, you've created a project as a volunteer, and you've engaged in this process of consultations or even developed your own policy recommendations. And not had any funding to keep the project going or continue to do it on your own time because you care so much about the project and the outcomes. And it's really important that we help close that gap through funding and making that accessible to a lot of young people. Another thing that I think is really important and something I was really excited to see as part of these sessions is the importance of translation and ensuring that these documents aren't only produced in English as they are in many countries, especially because consultants tend to help out, and that ends up also happening a lot of times in English, but not just even the UN languages, right? Spanish, Portuguese, etc., but also indigenous languages and other languages that might not be the national language, but are really important to ensuring these documents can represent and meet the needs of those local communities that don't speak English or even the national language primarily as their first language, so they can understand it and engage too. It's a really important process. And the last two things I think I'll note are that young people aren't only contributors to what they want to see, but they can also monitor and report and give feedback on what's going well and what needs to be improved, right? Implementing and engaging in NDCs doesn't mean things are going to be perfect the first time they get rolled out. These are strategies and processes, and it's important that governments have a starting place that they're putting in their NDCs, but that we're all a part of the solutions to be able to track and monitor them, and also to make sure that they still work for us, because we might have new ideas or new needs that emerge or something that happens that makes us want to change how we're doing something. And that will be true, especially as climate impacts unfold, that force us to change in a lot of ways as well. So it's important to be involved in that monitoring and to be responsive to what's going on around us. And of course, it's on this list, but supporting Indigenous youth and youth from the most impacted communities and young people with disabilities are really, really important to these processes. And that also requires changing even potentially how certain sections of NDCs might be approached or how they're written or implemented. There's not just one way or one governance model, and it might look different for engaging with different groups. It's important to talk with those groups to make sure that everyone's doing these things in partnership, right? Not just having the outcomes kind of forced upon you. And so for me, these are some of the really important takeaways that happened from the consultations, and I'm really excited to see all of them presented and hear what the ideas that are emerging from everyone here today include. So thanks, Hannah. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Haley. Really appreciate you jumping in to kind of take us home with these consultations. Encourage folks in the chat to share your reactions, share your thoughts. Please, yeah, feel free to come in on this. I think too important to emphasize that these consultations, took place in a moment in time, but these conversations that we're hoping to have here today are just building on this platform of results, of recommendations, of insights. So hope that we can all continue to take these conversations forward and these recommendations into our own work, especially in the coming months. All right, moving on quickly to the next portion of our agenda today. I'm very excited to turn to two of our speakers for a fireside chat. So we welcome Ms. Lakshmi Jha, a senior divisional engineer at the Ministry of Energy, Water Resources, and Irrigation in Nepal, where she oversees budgeting, licensing, and the monitoring and evaluation of power projects through various construction phases. Ms. Jha has been actively involved in Nepal's Nationally Determined Contribution, NDC, process from its very beginning, contributing significantly to the planning, policy design, and implementation of energy and climate strategies. Welcome, Lakshmi. Next, we have Pema Wongmo Lama, who is a climate activist dedicated to protecting and promoting the rights of Indigenous peoples, women, and marginalized groups, particularly in the areas of social and environmental justice. She currently wears multiple hats at the community, at the national and international level, and is here today representing the International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change. She has represented Indigenous peoples' constituencies at the international level and works to enhance the capacities and promote leadership among Indigenous women and youth, including in the preparation of Nepal's NDC. Thank you so much to you both for being here today. I will turn to the floor to Pema to kick us off for this discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Tashi Tele, Indigenous greetings from my side of the world. Like shared in my introduction, I'm from Nepal and I belong to Mogum Indigenous community. And currently, I'm representing International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change to be one of your chat buddies for the fireside chat session with our amazing government representative, Miss Lakshmi Jha, Lakshmi ma'am, from the government of Nepal. So yeah, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, NDC Partnership, for giving me the floor. And I'd also like to invite Miss Lakshmi Jha on the floor as well to have a conversation on the NDC of Nepal, as well as the whole process of NDC development, so that young people here with us and also everyone here with us gets some idea on what goes behind it, what is happening with NDC right now, and what we can do forward in its implementation process. So yeah, first of all, I think I'd like to ask Ms. Lakshmi Jha about about Nepal's NDC itself. Having been engaged in the NDC process since NDC 1, what are the policy shifts that you see from going from NDC 1 to NDC 3? And also, what are the technical aspects of it that we as young people should know that can really help us to understand it better?
Thank you so much, Pema. I hope I'm audible. Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So thank you. Thank you so much for confirmation. Actually, I'm having some technical issues. I don't know, for some reason my video is not working. So yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Lakshmi Jha. I have experience of in public sector since more than a decade. I'm an electrical engineer and working in a government of Nepal, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation as a senior divisional engineer. And thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, I'm involved in NDC since last, from the very, in the beginning from the NDC 1. So at that point, our generation our power generation was all limited to only 1 gigawatt, I guess. If I'm not, I can't say the exact figure, but yeah, I think it was only 1.5 gigawatt. But since then, we are reached up to the 3.5 gigawatt. It is increased by almost three times. And also we will have, a very load shedding, and we were not able to export power to the neighbor countries. But now we have seasonal surplus, and we are exporting power. We are earning from that those like exporting power. So these are possible due to such type of like policy drafting, and also as a government employee. Since then, almost 10 or 15 policies have drafted and amended by the government, like and some of them are, as we have heard from the medias also, that electricity bill is in the phase of new electricity bill is in the phase of to get approved by the cabinet, and other is renewable energy bill and hydromet bill, which will give us the guidance for the hydrological scenarios in Nepal. And then Water Resources Act, which has recently approved. And also the major issue is our land acquisition in Nepal, because we know that Nepal is a landlocked country and we have a very limited land resources here. So we lots of mega projects are like get stuck due to this land acquisition process. So we need to have like a very particular land acquisition act. So for that, with the initiation of Ministry of Energy, we are drafting the new land acquisition act, which will benefit the more and more like transmission line projects and hydropower projects, especially focused on the mega projects, not the medium or small projects. So yeah, these are, and also to improve the clean cooking for the indigenous people and for the hilly and the where still we have lacking to 1% of grid line, where we are still dependent on the firewood and the smokes. So to deplete it and to replace these cooking methods, we are promoting clean cooking and for this we have a special organization called AEPC, that is Alternative Energy Promotion Center, which is leading this project. And this organization has got very tremendous progress in this period of time, because I believe we had only a few thousands of number of distribution of induction stoves, but now it is increased by millions, and we are targeting to increase it by more 15 millions in the next 5 years, so that we can totally replace the gases, the we can replace all the which was used in the village area by indigenous people, and replace it with the clean cooking stoves. So yeah, these are the major shifts after getting this NDC 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, we are working really hard to get a more practical and implementable policy, so that we can help the people in a more in a more practical way. So yeah, thank you. At the same time, I would like to ask Pema that we draft a policy in a very closed environment, in a table. Maybe we can say that, because like Nepal, country like Nepal, we have a very very hard, difficult terrain. Sometimes we wish to go each part of Nepal, but we can't because of so many limitations. But as an activist in this sector, what do you see we need to do as a policy maker, so that it will be more impactful and more practical to for the indigenous people and the village people, we can say that. So can you elaborate it on that, especially focusing on the women, how we can help them?
Thank you so much, Lakshmi ma'am, for everything that we have shared in terms of the technical aspects of our NDC. So talking about my experience of how we can be better inclusive, especially bringing out grassroots voices, indigenous women voices in NDC. I think I can say that from a position that I myself was engaged in the NDC preparation process for Nepal. So for me, what I saw was, I know NDC process is a very technical process, and sometimes it's very difficult for for activists, for people who are not in the technical aspect of it, very difficult to understand and navigate around the processes. But I think one thing that our government can do is to mobilize its local bodies. So Nepal has been gone through a great political shift from to federalization. Right now, we have many local governments, many local bodies that work very closely with the community. So I think working with those level of governments that our own government can mobilize and bring those grassroots voices is very important, because the local bodies really knows who are in the community. They know who can put out meaningful voices. They know the diversity within the local communities and local spaces. So I think mobilizing local community would be an amazing idea. And another thing is, I think at the central level, at central level where the policy is actually made, I think the government can engage with more organizations that are at the forefront of working with these diverse groups. Like I know our government knows many organizations that directly works with women on climate issues who have that technical capacity to put their meaningful voice in NDC. And there are indigenous peoples organizations who are engaged in this process for such a long time. They can reach out to those organizations. There are youth organizations who have been doing this for such a long time. They can reach out to those organizations. So we need to, especially as you know, Nepal is such a diverse country and we have so many groups. I think it's very important that we don't uh, take these groups just to tick boxes. Like, okay, we have indigenous youth person, we have indigenous person, we have women, we have other marginalized groups, and okay, that's done. So instead of doing that, maybe we could have a more rigorous and robust process to ensure that those voices that we are taking are more meaningful. I think that would be a great idea. So yeah. And thank you so much for sharing everything that we have in NDC, especially in terms of the progress that we have made in green energy production, also renewable and clean cooking stoves, especially at community levels as well. I think those are really important shifts. And especially with, as I have been engaged in this climate activism for so long, I also know like the multiple policies that have come forward as a result of NDC preparation and the whole process itself of our country's engagement in the overall UNFCCC processes. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think I'm not sure if you're in a capacity to share that, but as someone who have been engaged in NDC 3 process, what do you think is now it's different in terms of like youth engagement in the overall NDC process or youth visibility in the NDC 3.0 document itself compared to the NDC 1? And what do you think brought that change? If you're able to share some of those, uh, uh, please respond to that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Payman. Thank you for your sharing. Before addressing your second question, I'd like to spark on some points like through NDC 1 to 3. What I have observed that as a government employee, I have involved in some public hearings, and what I observed that we want to involve the local people in that conflict, so that they can local people and local government, so that they know the society better than us. Like Singhadarbar is something like in a particular rules and regulation they follow. So we want to over them to resolve that issue. The issue was regarding the transmission line project. It was a 900 megawatt mega projects, but the issue was pending for 6 months. Finally, I was the one who was leading that dispute settlement project, and I had to go to the site, and our team had to go to that side, and we resolved between the local people, local government, and the stakeholders. So this is the scenario. Ultimately, like we as a federal government, we want to disperse our everything to the local people, but but every time we have to interfere to settle down finally. So this is the condition. I don't know what is exactly the maybe they have local government, local bureaucrats have very limited power still they are exercising. Maybe that could be also a reason. The other thing is the willingness. Some people only, when I was engaged in the dispute settlement, some people are only, like interested, invested interest. So these are the things which I have experienced. For that, I don't know what exactly policy shift we need, but the thing is intention. Intention is also very important, that we need this project. It's for us. So that's message, that's mentality has to be changed for the local people and the indigenous people. When as a federal government, when we go there, they think that, oh, something is going to good happen here. So this thinking has to be changed. So I have experienced for few times when we are engaging in the dispute settlements or any like mega projects or any projects, when we are involved in the public hearing. But the good part is now, as a policy, what we have done, previously it was when there is a public hearing for transmission line project or hydropower projects, then there is not a mandatory representation of women from the households. But now what we have done, what the government has done, that if there is a public hearing, the women representation is mandatory. So that is really, because in a village area, in indigenous society, the women are the one who is holding everything. They are whenever there is a natural disaster or any projects is building up, the first people who are vulnerable in the condition is obviously women and children. So what we have done is there should be a representative from the women for any type of public hearing. So that is the one shift what I have seen. And another is we are being more techno friendly. We are using GIS. We are using MRV. So the young people are more, like because of YouTube and everything, the people can learn easily this technology. So the young engineers. Also, I am also, like aware of these tools, so I can easily plot everything. So these are the shift I have seen. So I think this has to be institutionalized in government sector, which is in a lack in VR, because we are learning it for our own. So we need to institutionalize is in the government sector, so they can have proper guidance, in a proper training, in a proper guidance, so that they can improve, they can enhance their knowledge in a more practical and approachable way. So these are the things I see. And another thing is, obviously everything is stuck in the finance thing. So we are dependent on so many things financially. So in a donor agency, a government GDP is not so high that we can invest everything in, like for clean cooking or infrastructure development. We have to disperse, government has to disperse the limited resources in a diverse sectors. So obviously that is also the one reason. So yeah, these are the things. I don't know if I I was able to answer your question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those. I think those were important reflections as well, because coming from indigenous community, we have a terminology. It's called free, prior, and informed consent, which we take very dearly with our heart, which has been recognized by international laws as well. So I think a lot of that comes in every process of climate action or development. You say hydropower projects or any climate action, when there is informed consent, which is free, which is like not based on anyone's vested interest, but based on interest of the people. I think that will definitely open up space for many good works for both community and for the government, because sometimes what government sees as best for people may not be one, and sometimes what people thinks is government doing may not be something that they think what it is. So I think it works definitely both ways. Both community and government should be informed of each other's rights and each other's responsibilities when we come to these things, and especially when it comes to important policies like NDC. So yeah, thank you so much, Lakshmi ma'am, for sharing all your insights and the technical aspects of the NDC, which sometimes is very difficult for us to understand, because we are not in those spaces. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for allowing us to have this wonderful chat with you, and for the rest of our young people to having the opportunity to listen to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Prema. One more thing I would like to add that the government Ministry of Energy has drafted the last mile electrification 3 years ago, and at that time we had electrification rate only limited to 89%. Now it's 97%. I think this is the very big change in the energy sector, and we though the 2% remaining 2% is really hard to get the grid in the hilly and like difficult terrain, but we are trying hard to do that. But it's based on that last mile electrification report, so we are trying to get that. So this is the only last thing I want to add in. So thank you so much for everything, Pema and Hannah.
I will just continue the thanks to you both. We are so grateful for this open and insightful conversation. And I think we've all learned quite a bit more and are eager to continue kind of pulling apart some of the topics that you mentioned, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities as we move into the breakout rooms. So thank you both again so much for your time. In just a few moments, you will have an option to select one of 2 breakout rooms for the next part of the program today. We will reconvene as a group for a parting video address from Leila Hassanova and Marcele Oliveira, Presidency Youth Climate Champions for COP29 and COP30. There will be no interpretation in the breakout rooms. So if you have been listening in either Spanish or the French channel, please send a message in the chat and we will convene one group here in the main room if needed. Your breakout room moderators will prompt an open and equitable discussion, and we ask that everyone adheres to Chatham House rules, where you may speak of what was discussed, but we ask that you do not share who said it or where they are joining from. So I think I want to save some time, and we'll go ahead and launch our 2 breakout rooms. If you have any questions, members of the planning team will be in each room and happy to support you. Thank you all. I think we're very much looking forward to your insights, and we will meet back here in about 25 minutes.